The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of our tradecraft analysis of Argo. If you missed out on part 1, there's a simple solution. You might want to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you can always stay caught up with us.
Brief recap, we've got 6 diplomats stuck in a very energized and hostile Iran. CIA exfiltration specialist George Mendez, played by Ben Affleck, wants to try to pass them off as Canadian filmmakers, but to do this, he's going to have to make a fake movie seem credible. At this point, he's got a producer and a script and a lot of work ahead of him, and that's where we'll catch up with him in this episode of Spies Like Us.
Yeah, it was, they were digging through scripts, and I think in the film, Mendez is the one that finds the script, and it's basically a science fiction taking place in the Middle East, or has a Middle East feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, this is a dumb script. He's like, it doesn't matter. Middle East, sci-fi, let's go.
Right, yeah. It's Roger Zelazny. I used to consume a huge amount of science fiction novels when I was a kid, like just dump trucks full. And I actually never read any Zelazny myself, but I was always aware, that his name was floating out there. The script is from his novel Lords of Light, which was a movie that, they're even luckier. Like, they not only have a script, but this script had gone into pre-production before it got canceled. So there were materials existent. Like some of the groundwork had been laid, including legendary comic artist Jack Kirby had even done storyboards for the film, which, we see even later, like when Affleck is, kind of showing it to the guy in Iran, the Office of Cultural Exchange or whatever, that he's got these storyboards, which they just lend so much credibility. Not just that they have a script, but they have, pre-production work on it. And that,
and I was embarrassed to not know who Jack Kirby was. I know you gave me a lot of nerd shame for that.
Minus nerd points.
Right.
Those, just the fact that they employed the use of Jack Kirby's storyboards, like, I have to give this my number 1 best tradecraft, because it just meshes so much to my nerd soul and my loving figuring out CIA movies that it's gotta go. I had thought that maybe those originals would be parked next to the Ark of the Covenant. I wondered at first, like, how much would those be worth?
Right.
That seems like a piece of comic art, like, collector. That almost seems like the pinnacle. I can't think of anything more valuable except, like, maybe the original first fucking drawing of Batman.
Yeah, like the old Detective comic, like pre-sketch or something.
Right. But no, I checked it out. Somebody owns them. They did get sold. And the guy that bought them and currently owns them, he didn't even know that they had been involved in the Argo operation.
Oh my God!
Them. So they're probably worth significantly more than he paid for them.
Right.
They upped the ante further along the way too, when I forget what it is that triggers them to be kind of concerned that they're not doing enough to sell the story, but they also decide that they need to actually, like, have, like, this movie being described and discussed in the press.
There's like a comment about, like, John Goodman's character working on something with Rock Hudson, and he was just like, if you need to sell something, have the press sell it for you. And this is actually going to lead into my best tradecraft number 2. Just the whole selling of the film, but it involves all of this. It's really like, when we have storyboards, we're going to make posters, we're going to buy out ads in the Hollywood publications, but I love how Alan Arkin actually gets the option for the script. He meets I guess the writer in charge for the script, and played by Richard Kind, who's
Just
always funny.
Yeah, just the guy that
Yeah,
happens to own the options on it.
right. And so, and that guy kind of is typical Hollywood, where he's overselling stuff, but he's like, oh, I know how to handle him. And so I just love that he uses his Hollywood tradecraft to kind of just like, break deals and like shut them down, get that. And then what's the best part is how they sell this story to the press. They have a like kind of like a mini convention, like table read, like all the actors are in costume, the press is all over it, they all the who's and like big names that like in the industry are going to be at this like big table read. It was a lot of fun, and I kind of liked the Hollywood craft that they played in it to really sell the story in America, to sell it to the press, to make it look really legitimate.
Yeah, it is really good, and it is really like the beating heart of the movie is the crafting of the Hollywood cover story, which is such like not exactly tradecraft, but is also just fucking amazing and great.
Yeah.
And it's some of the most like accurate stuff in this film, which I appreciate as well. I wanted to say that the press conference in particular, just as a piece of movie making, I really loved the way that the scenes of the press conference are juxtaposed with television footage of like all the horrible things, or not just television footage, but we also see like mock executions and stuff, all the horrible things that are going on in Iran. And it's actually kind of genius,
Yeah.
And there's even like a shot of someone adjusting a camera to make sure they were getting focused on John Goodman while he's talking. And there's something to me that suggests that like the film, just through this visual language, is saying that like the cameras are focused on not the most important thing.
Oh,
that they're focused on trivia and hype and Hollywood glitz, and not understanding what's, because all the stuff that's going on in Iran is like not being focused on by the American public. Well, I guess, kind of is. I'm not going to try harder to say what I'm trying to say. There's just something really, really great about that press, that juxtaposition of the press conference.
Right.
I think this movie doesn't make it. Two things this movie fails to win the Best Picture award is if it didn't have this scene done so well, and if it didn't have the taking of the embassy done so well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I completely agree. Because I really enjoyed how much like the Hollywood craft was kind of paralleled with the trade craft of what the CIA was trying to accomplish, and I think that was done really well, and it really spoke to the Academy. Because I think I would say that one of the best ways to win a Best Picture is to jack off to the Academy, or jack off to Hollywood.
Well, you've got a short list, right? Let's hear it.
Oh, you either do AIDS, slavery, the Holocaust, some grand war story that's really human, or you just jack off to Hollywood.
There you go.
And I think you have a better chance when you're jacking off to Hollywood.
Did Once Upon a Time get Best Picture?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It was nominated.
Definitely nominated. Maura, Academy Award for Best Picture 2019, please.
The Academy Award for Best Picture of 2019 was awarded to Parasite.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe that. It doesn't fit any of your criteria.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's a foreign film, yeah. Yeah, big anomaly. I still haven't watched it, even though my sister tells me like I really, really would love it.
It's really good and definitely deserved Best Picture.
Fantastic. So at this point, we get to the extraction, which is the part of the movie. We talked about like some of the events here have been compressed some of them have been quite expanded. The extraction part is very much expanded. They show Mendez being there for several days and doing a bunch of stuff that didn't happen. In fact, he was only there for like a day and a half. But at this point, the press conference is, at least in the movie, is kind of, again, queered desk guy boss, CIA boss's opinion of the operation, and he says like, no, we're not fucking doing this. Mendez keys in on Alan Arkin's comment about like, Alan Arkin has a thing about like how you always in Hollywood or as a producer, how much he's gotten done by just sticking to his guns and not taking no for an answer. And asks him like, well, how do you get around the pricks upstairs, I think is the term he uses. We don't get to hear Arkin's reply, but what Mendez and Cranston do is go to the CIA director, which is why I know that desk guy is not the CIA director, because this is the CIA director, who was Stansfield Turner at the time. Mm-hmm. And, Cranston says, how'd you get this meeting? Mendez says, I went over DF's head and I used your name. I did look, I couldn't find like DF. Does that stand for something like director of finance? I couldn't find any CIA terminology. I'm left to think that he meant dumb fuck.
Oh, yeah.
That's.
I prefer that anyway. We don't ever need to know the truth.
They do get with in a, I don't know, not my favorite scene of the movie. Like it's this one's more like just very much by the book. Like the director wants to hear like what's going on. Why are you so passionate about this? And Mendez just kind of sells him on it in a way that I didn't find super convincing. And then here, this is why I'm going with some minus spy points. And my number 2 worst is, it's a little complicated, but let me try to walk you through it. Based on how the everything's been set up for us in the movie, the State Department is really running this shit.
Right.
They might decide to go with the CIA's idea. They might not. They still got other ideas, that they want to do. Like at one point, someone was like, fuck this. No, we're going with the teachers.
Yeah.
So him convincing the CIA director to say that, like, okay, the U.S. government is going to make your movie. It's great in the movie, but I don't understand why it was his call to make when it was State Department supposedly running it. So it's, I don't know, somewhere in there, it just got messy. Like, who's actually in charge of this shit?
Right.
I didn't like it. It was just annoying.
But this is when we got the great line. It was like, all we have is bad ideas. And you think this is a good idea? We think this is the best bad idea.
It's a perfect line. It's a perfect scene. I'm not giving it minus movie points, just minus spy points.
Yeah.
So again, all in all, I'm not sure. I feel like this might be, again, an expansion. Like we see through this movie, like all this bureaucratic pushback. I'm really not sure how much of that there actually was. The alternate theory, which seems more accurate in reality, is that, if the Canadians did like 90% of the job and Mendez just needed to, just kind of put the cherry on the sundae, fly in, fly out, seemed pretty easy. So I don't know. I can believe there was this much bureaucratic pushback, but we really just don't know.
Yeah, and this actually made my number 2 worst tradecraft. I feel like in reality, maybe it was on hold for maybe like 10 minutes or something. But they made it sound like the whole way through there was always like these gates that kept shutting in, and it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. You know, I don't know why just this op didn't go through. I think it was pretty believable and a good idea, especially with all of the arguments Mendez brought up about like not using teachers and journalists and why it was a bad idea to take bicycles up to the border in the middle of winter. Um, yeah, but I don't know, it was probably good for movie making. So that's my worst tradecraft number two.
Yeah, I feel like the movie just wants to like expand and fill more space and time with that to build up the dramatic tension. But once it's on, it's on.
Yeah.
Again, like like we just mentioned, he was only there for a day and a half. In the movie, it looks like he spends like 4 or 5 days there.
Right.
Plus spy points for taking your wedding ring off before you fly in. Remember that, you fucktard from The Company episode 2.
And in The Good Shepherd.
Oh, is it The Good Shepherd? That's the one I was thinking of. I got it mixed up.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't wedding ring, it was a class ring.
Yeah,
The
right,
Good Shepherd. Yeah.
But he tells them specifically, like, I wouldn't wear my class ring down there.
Yeah.
And it's
Cuba.
specifically that finger they send him, as a message.
Right, yeah.
I like, these plus spy points for Cranston. The line is perfect. I'm required to remind you the agency will not claim you. Just very like matter of fact, just got to, get through this. You and I know the deal. I'm just checking off a box here. Perfect delivery of a line.
Yeah, and you always need that line in a good spy film. Remember, none of this ever happened.
Right. But actually, that's why I'm giving it the plus spy points. See, I usually wouldn't if it was just like someone giving that line, like you're saying, like, like if Cranston had made it a big deal, and said like, listen, George, listen, are you listening? You got to understand this. If this thing goes sideways, the agency will disavow you, right?
Right.
That's just like, whatever, right? But the way they're doing this is just like, he's just dropping them off at the airport, and he's just like, hey, oh yeah, and I'm required to say blah 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 blah, and they don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, no,
just like something that I get fired if I didn't say this thing.
Yeah.
When he gets to Iran and meets his contact there, they have a really nice, really natural, like, Iran is not 100% safe, can't be safe all the time. It's clearly a code phrase, but it's done so naturally. Plus spy points.
Right.
And more plus spy points for that guy. He's only got the one scene, but he says, this is your play. You're going to go straight at them and apply for a permit. Like, don't try to hide yourself. Just go right into the belly of the beast and say, hi, I'm here.
Oh, is this when they do they meet the Ministry of Culture?
Yes.
Right?
Well, that's what he does with that advice. Yeah.
Right. This is my number one tradecraft, or my number one best tradecraft was meeting with the Ministry of Culture and then getting the letter, because the letter really sold it later at the airport. And it's that idea of hiding in plain sight. Like, we're here to make a film. Here is storyboards. Here's magazines talking about our film. We're looking for locations. It's got a Middle East feel to it. We're Canadian. Here's some passports and documents. Like we're here to make a movie about Iran. Hey, Ministry of Culture. So they get a letter from the Ministry of Culture out of this, which adds to like selling everything from every step of the way. At the airport, they actually bring out the letter. So this is my number one best tradecraft.
When he talks to the people, when Mendez talks to the people about the plan, he doesn't seem super confident about it, which is minus spy points for me. I think it's actually my number one worst tradecraft. Okay. I think it's done for the screen, not for the story. to make us think like, oh, Mendez, he's a man of honor. He's not going to deceive them. He's gonna let them know, this is really dangerous and we could all die.
Right.
That's the wrong play. When they say, have you done this before? You say, yeah, 30 fucking times, and everyone lived.
Right.
It's bad, right?
Yeah. No, he definitely could have been more confidence in them. And I feel like the real Mendez probably did that. Like, it's just another day. From the podcasts I've listened to, from the research I've done on Mendez himself and the story of like this whole exfiltration op, it seemed to me like it was another day at work. And this was just like his really big, dangerous, op that someone as experienced of him could have pulled off. So I completely agree with you.
Right. The reality was, again, this op, like this cherry on top of the part, like the dangerous part, this day and a half, went off without a hitch, like no issues. They just went in, they came out. Doesn't make for a great movie, so that's why this part needs to get expanded and get a bunch of fictional drama infused into it.
One of the things I really liked in the film was having them go out to the bazaar or like the market and have them show them like taking photos, obviously being Canadian filmmakers, really, really selling the story. I really like that. I think he was advised against it. Don't give them too many hits at your covers is what somebody advised him not to do. And he was like, I need them to like be comfortable and be out there. And this is like a preliminary selling the story. Like word would get out, hey, there's a bunch of Canadians taking pictures, which then leads into this like scene with this guy angry that they're taking pictures and he didn't give him permission and he was mad because his son was killed, by an American or something like that, and he's like really angry. I made this my number 3 best tradecraft was having them go through the market and like showing them. I'm pretty sure this happened, not exactly at the market, but I'm pretty sure they went out into the public wearing Canadian flag pins or something like that. And I think you were saying that you didn't find that, but I just kind of like the idea of preliminarily selling the story of them being filmmakers, like just researching shot locations.
I liked it as well. You tell me that in the couple of documentaries you listened to about it, that this was legitimate. I'm going to tell you that the CIA denies that this happened. I'm not sure exactly why they would, but it wouldn't be the first time the CIA denied something. But right. They ran a Twitter like fact versus fiction on this movie that I read through, and they said they didn't go out to the bazaar. Now, that left me really on the fence on plus or minus spy points here, because
right.
If the CIA said, okay, if they didn't really do it, and the CIA says we wouldn't have done that, then I would be like, okay, I believe you. But if you had told me that that they did do it, and the CIA said, yeah, we did that, I would say, okay, that makes sense. Like, right. I don't know what the right call is here.
Right.
But if the CIA, so this is going to be a weird one, but I'm going to stick to it. You're calling this your best tradecraft number 3, right?
Right.
I'm going to split. I'm going to make a juke move here. And I'm going to call it my worst tradecraft number 3.
Yeah.
Because my research says they didn't do it. And then if we have conflicting sources, then I'm happy just splitting the difference with one of us voting plus spy points and one of us voting minus spy points. And that will satisfactorily resolve my ambivalence on the issue. Also, I really, really could not find bad tradecraft in this movie.
It was tough.
There's
It
not
was really tough.
there's
Yeah.
there's not even enough tradecraft to be bad. And
Right.
yeah, and if anything, like just the historical inaccuracy kind of stuff, that's not what we give minus 5 points for around here.
No, no. But, you know, one thing the movie did do is it stretched out the events quite a bit and made it more, I guess, risky or terrifying. But apparently the op went super smoothly. You know,
Right.
I
Well,
know the 6 people were shaking in their boots, but apparently it went like ultra smooth.
we get at the last minute, the whole carpet weaver guys have like put together one of the pictures. You got
Right.
the Iranian Republican Guard knocking on doors and like
Right.
going to his superior and saying like, we got him, and then there's
Right.
like this car chase, even like out onto the tarmac. The cars are even chasing the plane as it's taking off. None
Right.
of this happened in reality. The reality was they just slipped in and slipped out, flew out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and all the Iranian Guard sleeping peacefully in their beds.
Yeah. I I actually listened to 2 podcasts. One from True Spies, and one from the Parcast Espionage podcast. And when they got to the airport, things were kind of weird. One of the guys was reading like an English newspaper, and Mendez was like, "Hey, yo, put that away." One of them was like super nervous, and so like 2 of them kind of kept their distance away from that guy. You know, it was really tense at the airport, but for the most part, the op was like really smooth. Um, but in our film of making everything super tense, there's a moment where one of the airport guards calls the studio, and both Alan Arkin and John Goodman are on set watching a shot, and they have to get back, and the set's like, "No, you got to stay and watch this shot." And I feel like this was just for the movie to build tension, that they're not there to answer the phone and they have to like rush to answer the phone and they just get it at the last moment, you know. But I feel like the 2 guys in Hollywood would have been by the phone waiting, uh, especially if they know when
That's
the
a
op
really
is happening.
that's a really good call.
So that made my worst tradecraft #1.
I like your thinking on this one.
Yeah. But it did build some really good tension. They just at the last ring of the phone, they picked up and they're like, "Yeah, we're Studio 6. How you doing?" "Oh no, that guy's on leave in another country doing location shots."
There's just a certain shape that a drama has to take, and you have to have that last minute, oh my god, it's not gonna work. Oh good, it worked.
Yeah, right.
Pedants really had a lot of fun with this movie. I mentioned before, I really enjoyed reading the trivia page for it. Most of them are, I mean, and there's a ton. When you make a movie that is set in history in this day and age of the internet, you're gonna get called out on shit,
right? On like everything.
That most of them fall into like flags being wrong, cars being wrong. Like there's some scene where they are driving into Iraq, and it's the Iraqi flag, but it also has an inscription on it that wasn't added until later. Cars is always going to be a thing. Like my dad is constant. My dad, you can't watch any historical movie without my dad commenting on every single model of every car that didn't actually exist in that year. Somebody complained about the watch that Mendez was wearing. Like that model didn't come out until 2 years later.
Right.
Stuff like that. But there's some fun ones as well. And I'm going to tell you, like, I think one of my favorites, this is just pedantry. Like, I love you. You know, at the end, they show a shot of a bunch of Star Wars figures.
Uh-huh.
The Sandman and the Jawa are the Sandman is labeled as a Jawa, and the Jawa is labeled as a Sand person.
Oh.
And some Star Wars nerd just went, aha! I gotcha! But this one also I like. This is a fun Led Zeppelin pedant story.
Oh yeah, you told me about this. I love
Uh-huh.
this one because I'm a huge Zeppelin fan.
What's the song? The Levee, When the Levee Breaks?
When the Levee Breaks.
When the Levee Breaks. Okay. So Affleck really, really, really wanted this song in the movie. And this is the
Right.
part of the film where he's it's after the bazaar, I'm pretty sure. And like, so it's just finally like we've done everything we can. In the morning, we'll fly out and we'll live or we'll die. And right now, you guys should just relax. And he really wanted them to play the song When the Levee Breaks here.
Mhm.
And he was super happy when Led Zeppelin said, yeah, okay, you can use the song, but we gotta have final approval, right? So you gotta send us the footage where it's used. And they came back and they said, it's fine, but When the Levee Breaks is the last song on side A, I think it is. And in the movie, you show the person dropping the needle on the very beginning of the album. That's wrong. You need to fix that.
That's great trivia. I love that.
I love that shit.
Didn't you say Jimmy Page was the one that said that?
I don't know.
Like, that's the last track.
I don't know who it is, but I love that. I love that little detail that Led Zeppelin is like, hey,
yeah,
you got to respect the Zepp.
Yeah,
get it right.
Yeah. Well, are you ready to come in from the cold and debrief this?
Did you cover your worst tradecraft number 3? Declassifying the story I'm looking at in the notes?
No. I took that out. I changed that to the dinner party. But I could talk about it a little bit. One thing I did want to kind of give minus spy points to history and to the movie was declassifying this. Because now you could never really use this op again. I think it was kind of declassified way later. And it was really to improve the CIA image. Which I understand and which is fine. And I'm sure they have plenty of other cover stories that are just as elaborate and successful. But I feel like this is a good one that you could like keep on the shelf, and utilize as much as possible. Like you probably don't want to do it all the time, but it's definitely one to have in the bag of tricks.
You've put all future Canadian location scouts at risk, at terrible risk.
Yeah. Right. It's kind of like the thing, you can't use journalists. Well, now Canadian filmmakers can't go to places that hate Canadians or Americans. But whatever.
I got a question for you. So,
yeah,
there's the it's not a trope, it's just a fact. Like if you're traveling abroad as an American in places where they don't like Americans, you just say you're Canadian. I wonder, like, when you're traveling as a Persian in places or times where people are mistrustful of Persians, what do you say? I mean, most people can't tell an Arab from a Persian, if their life depended on it.
Or any of the other Middle Eastern countries. But there was that SNL skit John Goodman actually was in that skit. It was John Goodman and Rob Schneider. And John Goodman's like the typical angry American at everybody, just like we talked about how the 80s treated Persians because of the hostage crisis. John Goodman's there's like a Turkish like mini market owner, and John Goodman's throwing a brick in the wall, and he was like, "You damn Arabs, go back to where you came from." He's like, "I'm not Arab, I'm Turkish." And then they just keep doing that scene like, "I'm not Afghani, I'm Turkish." And then they like crack jokes with it. They finally kind of buddy up, and he's like, "Oh, you remember that one time?" And it was just like over and over all these old flashbacks of him throwing bricks into his window, screaming at him like, "Go back to where you came from." He's like, "Oh, I'll get a newspaper." He's like, "Ah, it's on me," like we got a bond or whatever. And he pulls up the newspaper, and there's this huge article on the back about how like there was some big terrorist thing involving Turkey. He's like, "Oh my god, only read the sports page. Only read the sports page." So I guess you could just say you're Turkish, but I guess the Turkish relations with America aren't great right now either. I don't know. Tough question to answer because we don't really know too much about the rest of the world as a country.
I feel like I would go with Egyptian. I feel like Egypt hasn't been in the news in like for fucking ever.
Right.
Like I think I would say no. Would that fly? I don't know.
I don't know. They might be a little bit darker than Persians.
Yeah, but I don't
know.
I don't think Americans know that.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, if they can't tell the difference between an American and a Canadian, like,
Right.
God help you if you're, a standard American, like trying to, know the difference between a Turk and an Iraqi.
Right. Exactly. That's true.
All right. Debrief.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
While we were watching this movie together, and I had seen it once before, and it didn't make a huge impact on me. I like it a lot more, like, on reviewing. But while we were watching it, we were kind of asking each other, like, why is this Best Picture? I think it's some of the technique. Again, like, I think the two major scenes that super sell it is the embassy part and the press conference juxtaposition part.
Right.
I think it's also worth noting, like, there's a lot of technical, difficult stuff. There's a huge amount of location shots. The Academy can see, like, how difficult it is to pin all of this stuff together. Like, this movie is just, like, it's everywhere. There's so many scenes. And there's 240 speaking roles, which, I've done a research on this or something, but I believe that's
a
an
lot.
Incredibly high number.
Right. That's a lot.
And almost each one of them, even like these interactions with just a person that just has like one speaking scene and just like 2 or 3 lines, like are just small human moments that resonate well and are perfectly done. It just seems like the whole this movie's, it's kind of a mosaic, even though it just kind of concentrates on one event. It shows like so many tiny pieces of this event in so many like small ways, and it's just stitched together. Like, best editing, fucking 100% on that one. But me, it's just not my favorite kind of movie. I'm more of an action science fiction kind of guy. It's a flat 3. It runs straight down the middle. It's a great movie that just isn't necessarily a Todd movie.
Right.
So there.
No, I feel you. I feel you. I mean, for me, I kind of feel the same. I'm probably going to go with a 3.5. Just because we're doing a spy movie podcast, I would have liked a lot more tradecraft out of this. But just having Alan Arkin and John Goodman and Richard Kind was just such a delight throughout the whole film. Like, every time they're on screen, I was just like super excited and everything they did. And then we get that awesome line, this is the best bad idea so far, from like Cranston and like Ben Affleck. So I enjoyed it a lot. Like, there were a lot of fun moments. So I'm gonna go with a 3.5. Mainly because this is definitely not a Miss Sloan or a Good Shepherd or a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy for us.
Tradecraft review. Again, I don't know. Other than, it's kind of weird. Not to super relitigate or anything, but it's kind of weird because I feel like the tradecraft of this fake movie is just such a fucking genius idea.
Yeah.
That it deserves all the tradecraft. And there's a
Right.
reason, there's, there's a reason this is like a legendary CIA story.
Right.
But in the details, in moments like of finding tradecraft, this movie didn't offer a lot. But my number 3 best was reassembling the shredded documents, whether they used kids or carpet weavers or kid carpet weavers, which in some fashion they did. That's really smart, and that's really good.
Right.
I liked, the subtle thing about like Mendez making sure, like, explaining to state why you can't use press as a cover, even though he didn't exactly spell it out. He just said it in one kind of throwaway line. But also relief workers, they also were proposing relief workers, which he was also like very down on that idea. Yeah, that's good, and it's legit. My number 1 is just I can't. I kept using cherry on top as the metaphor for like the final phase of the op. So I feel like I'm showing my shallow well of metaphors when I go back to cherry on top. But what I just said about the grand idea of this fake movie being the best tradecraft ever, the cherry on top for me of that is the Jack Kirby storyboards. Number 1 best.
Right.
Number 1 best. It's in the details.
Yeah. It's always about the details. For my best tradecraft, number 3, I liked the idea of having them go through the market and, shooting and taking photos. Like, they were really trying to sell the idea that these are filmmakers trying to find locations. Whether that was true or not, I think we have a little dispute on our sources, but I still like the idea, especially for the film, to really sell it. My number 2 was just Alan Arkin and John Goodman's Hollywood craft, I'll call it.
Right. That's a great.
Yeah. Especially Alan Arkin when he approached Richard Kind to get the option for the script, and really like kind of it really demonstrated the how the Hollywood broker deals and stuff. And they're like, man, I know this town, I know this guy, So it was a lot of fun watching that, and the fucking convention was perfect. Like, just the table read and all the I loved it. It really sold it. My number 1 best tradecraft, of course, was meeting with the Ministry of Culture and getting that letter, because that letter was one of the many pieces that sold the story, especially at the airport. And the airport is going to be the hardest part to get through.
My number 3 worst tradecraft, it's a weird one because it's in direct opposition to your best. It's having them go through the market and take the pictures. And again, I really waffled on that one because, I wasn't sure, but the CIA says it didn't happen. You've got sources that say it did happen. I'm happy to split the difference and just have that be where the ball lands on the roulette table.
Right.
That it's actually it's the most satisfactory result in my opinion, because like I said, I was so much on the fence about it. Again, hard to find bad tradecraft in this movie. The number 2 that I got was that the film shows the CIA director approving the project when it is not at all clear that it's his call to make, because earlier it had been established that it was the State Department that was calling the ball, and just in general the confusion about who is actually in charge here. My number 1 worst, that's actually an easy one. When these frightened people ask you, have you done this before? You say yes 1,000 times, and it always works. Like the one thing that can really fuck this up, which he knows, is if they don't have faith in what they're doing. So, put aside your fucking honesty for a goddamn second. You are CIA, by the way.
Right.
You should know how to do this.
Right.
Yeah, that's bad.
My number 3 worst tradecraft was the dinner party and just kind of the 6 diplomats just hanging out at the house. Uh, this type of situation, in general, I think you can be searched at any time in Iran, and in this in this time period, I think it would have been even worse. So it was just a bad idea. No, my number 2 worst tradecraft was just not allowing the operation to go through. I think this was more about just creating tension, but I don't think it was that bad of an idea, despite what bureaucracy might have existed. And then my number 1 worst tradecraft was Alan Arkin and Goodman being away on set and they couldn't leave because some PA told them they had to be there for the shot. I feel like they would have known that the op was going on and they should be there by the phone. And this was just like a movie.
I really think that was such an incredibly genius catch on your
part. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's top notch.
Yeah, I like it kind of bugged me. I was like, why is it so hard for them to just be at the phone? These guys are supposed to be like the big shots on the set. I don't know. Whatever.
How many park benches does this movie deserve?
I want to say this is actually a lot more historically accurate than I would have expected, even though we didn't get a whole lot of tradecraft. And a lot of it was kind of like Hollywoodized or Oscar baitingized, I guess. I don't know. Like, I think, I mean, like, I don't think we should hit a 4 with this, but I kind of like a 3.5.
Wow. So I don't know. That it does kind of sound like a 4 to me. What are our 3.5s that we've given?
Samurai Spy, The Departed, The Good Shepherd, Miss Sloane, and then our 3s are like Atomic Blonde.
No, never mind the 3s. Never mind the 3s. I think it's definitely between a 3.5 and a 4. Based on what you just said, I'm feeling the 4. There's very like our bad tradecraft here. Even though, like I agree, like with your number 1, it's really good. But again, remember that didn't actually happen. Probably,
right?
That phone call probably didn't actually happen.
I'm sure both of them had the money or a friend to sit down and pretend to be a secretary for Studio 6. Like, and I don't think the film really played time zones well.
Right?
Or
you could just assign a CIA intern.
Right. Like.
When the op is going down.
yeah, right? Like
But I don't think that's enough to drag it away from a 4. I think it's a solid 4. Not because of how much tradecraft it's got, but how much it doesn't do wrong.
Right.
Like it adds,
and it's pretty accurate.
It adds a bunch of dramatic flourishes, but that I'm not gonna take away for that because it would be unfair. Like when we're talking about a purely fictional movie, like A Most Wanted Man,
right?
To judge this movie for being historically inaccurate. You know what I mean? Like an attempt at historical accuracy shouldn't be a handicap.
Right, yeah.
Unless it's egregious. If it's egregiously wrong, then we would handicap it. I'm saying 4. Can you meet me there?
Yeah, I think you've convinced me that it definitely deserves a 4. I was kind of feeling, I don't know, I just really liked that they made a good attempt at being historical accurate, and there really wasn't any bad tradecraft. So yeah, 4 sounds good to me.
All right, 4 park benches. We are out of here.
And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like_us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You can find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.